All right, good afternoon, drafting class, fourth period. We are going to continue our conversation in our tutorial on fillet command, trim command, and also locating some circles in this second part of our exercise this week. So here we go. To continue the fillet command, we look at our example and we notice that there are, I can scroll this out so you guys can see both at the same time. If I move that over a little bit, and then bring over my picture, you can see that in our example, we still have to do a rounded corner there, a big cutout circle here, some circles in the middle, and one big circle on the end with a hole in it. So let's get to work. I think what I can do is I can maybe even shrink this down so you guys continue to see what I'm seeing as I model in space. I'll move this over a little bit. I will bring our picture back. There we go. That looks like it's good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our Modify tab. Oh, it looks like it went away. I'll bring it up periodically to show you guys. I'm going to currently move it over one screen so I can make some room here. But we're going to go back to our Modify tab and click on Fillet. And this time we need to specify a radius of 0.5 for the fillet, and I will push Enter. And once again, select which area, which two lines are meeting that we want to fillet. So this one I'm going to select here and right there. And you can see it snaps to really nicely. Let's scroll down. Let's do the same. To return to that command, I simply hit the Enter. The command line pops up with select the first object or radius. Its current settings are right above it listed. It's listed at 0.5, so we already know that it's been set from our last time we used it. We'll do the same thing. Click here. We'll click there, and we have our radiuses on the corners. Now I want to show you guys how to locate the circles that we can put to finish modifying our shape. So I'm going to come back into the Draw tab and select Circle. Let's start here out on the end first. So we know that the radius of the outside of this shape is a 1.25 radius. So the easiest way that we can do it is come down here and we can hover towards the midpoint, and you can see the midpoint highlight with a green triangle. Once we're there, I will click on it and you can see me rubber band action that circle in and out. I will just move it into space. I won't enter anything. I won't click anything yet. I'm going to use the dynamic input entry, and I'm going to type in 1.25, enter, and it snaps into place very nicely. I'm not going to trim anything yet because we're going to need some of these lines later. Let me see here. I can do the same thing on the other side for our cutout. I'm going to move our image back in for a second. So we have this outside radius placed tentatively. I want to do this big circle now here. So we have to determine where is that located. So from the bottom of this to the middle is where that circle wants to go. So we're going to snap to midpoint again. I'm going to move that out of the way. I'll draw another circle. It's going to come right here to the midpoint, and that circle diameter, now we have to do some math. I'll show you guys why. So if you're looking at our picture, from top to bottom is 2.25. From the bottom of the object to the middle to the midpoint is 2.25. But it doesn't tell us the diameter or radius of this circle. But you know that the end point of the circle is 1 inch right here. That's what this dimension is, 1 inch off the bottom of the object. So I have a very cool tool to show you guys in the circle command. I'm going to come back and click on the circle command, and I'm going to hover towards the midpoint. So I know that from top of the midpoint to the bottom is 2.25, but I stopped short of the bottom by 1 inch. So that leaves me a trajectory of 1.25 inches down to find the edge of that circle. And luckily enough, we have a command that specifies a 2-point circle. So it's going to ask us to put that circle into 2 places. We saw this in one of our earlier videos, and we're going to use it right now. So I'm going to click on the 2-point circle. I'm going to use the hover to the midpoint, and then I'm going to track down 1.25 and hit enter. That gives me one edge of the circle. You can see it knock itself or pin itself to that mark on the bottom, and I can extend upward. And I want to extend upward. Let me look at my picture. I want to extend upward 2.25 minus 1. Excuse me, gives me a radius of 1.25 for an overall diameter of 2.5. So I will move this out of the way, and I'll come back to our circle, and I'll track north and use my polar tracking and enter 2.5, enter. Polar tracking did not work. Let's try that again. Let's go hover up 2. Okay, I'll tab back and forth. No. Okay, what I'm going to have to do is come down here of the circle, specify the endpoint of the circle's diameter. I'm going to say 2.5. Oh, nope. So that was off in the wrong direction. Let's try that one more time. Crossing window to delete. I'll pick my circle again. From the 2 points circle, I can click hover, don't click, hover over the midpoint, track down 1.25 and push enter. It snaps the bottom edge of that circle into place. I'm going to track north 2.5 and hit enter, and that looks pretty good. I'm going to escape out of that command, and now we're getting somewhere. Now we are looking more like our shape we want. So there's a few more pieces that we need to do before we get there. So let's locate this middle slot right here. And the way I want to draw that middle slot is I want to locate some circles again and snap some lines to form that, and then trim out the inside. So what I'll do is I'll click on circle. And when I built our model the first time, I entered this segment of lines in segments so I know where the endpoints are. And if you follow me here, I will hover at the endpoint of that, and you can see it snapping with a green square to the endpoint. And the tool that I showed you earlier is that polar tracking, and it's really cool because you can polar track here and it picks that up, and I can go north and it keeps it. You can see the little crosshair green stay there. It remembers it. I come over here and find the center point of this circle, which is signified by the quadrant snap. And when I move back towards that first one it remembered, it created my target. I will click on there, and now I have my circle located, and I just need to find the right dimension. I come back and reference my drawing, and you can see that each side of that slot has a radius of 5. So I will, or I'm sorry, 0.5. I will enter 0.5. And there is the first part of my slot. Now for the second one, I'll do the same thing. I'll select the circle command. I will find the end point of that line right there. Remember, we entered it in segments according to our sample that we're working off of. Let that remember it. Come over here, find the quadrant or the center line of that circle, hover back. Once it picks it up, it targets it. I will come back over here and use my dynamic input, enter 0.5 and click enter. And now we have 2 sides of the slot. And to connect those, I'm simply going to use a line. With my object snaps to the quadrant, it picks the northernmost quadrant. Remember, we have 4 quadrants on the circle. I will pick this one, and I'm going to drag it over, and I'm going to pick the top of the other one. I'm going to escape and then hit enter. Pick up the quadrant and pick up that quadrant. And now we have our slot. So it looks pretty much like our sample picture that we are trying to replicate, except for there's a couple extra lines in there that we don't want. So I'm going to trim some of them. I'm going to come into the Modify tab, and the scissors right there, they hover, they say trim. This one's pretty easy. We just have to hover over the pieces that we don't want, and it trims them away. Just like, oh, wait a second, we missed one of our circles. I'm going to come back to our draw command. I will pick up the circle. I will hover towards midpoint, concentric with the outside edge. And this time, this one has a, let's bring our example back in. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see this. It doesn't say radius, it has a diameter symbol. So that's very important to know your difference between your diameter symbol and your radius symbol. So the radius is just an R, a capital R, and your diameter is a circle with a line through it. Diameter is all the way across the circle, radius is half of the circle. So just remember that. So I see a radius of 1.5 on that circle. I'm sorry, diameter of 1.5. I was getting myself confused. Diameter of 1.5. Select my circle. It's selected. I will hover towards midpoint. I will stretch it out and I will type in. Well, no, I got to change it. Come over here to our prompt bar. Change my diameter to 1.5 and hit enter. And that looks good. And let me show you really quick. Please watch the command line. If I click on circle again, it says specify center point for circle or 3.2 point tangent radius. When I specify my first point, it's going to enter it as a radius. You can see the dashed yellow line there being pulled out. That's your radius. That's half of your circle. You can come down here to the command line and click on the button that says diameter, and now you're entering the diameter. You can see it stretch in both ways right there. So then if you put the diameter in, it'll be all the way across the circle. So that's what we did in the last command. I'm going to exit there. I'll come back to our modify, use our trim command. I will trim the pieces I do not need. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Let's do the undo button at the top. I will trim this one. Actually, that just selected it and you can delete it. And now that looks right. Let's bring in our image and let's take a look. Okay, it looks pretty good. One part doesn't look right to me though. I feel like, and what I can tell just from the eye test, is that this length here and this length here are too long. You can tell at the top it's supposed to be 1 inch. I'm going to introduce you guys to the annotation tab. This is how we place measurement annotations on an object. So if I click on this endpoint and this endpoint, it tells me I'm at 2, which is not what we want. The annotation is not the correct size right now. It's not important. I just wanted to measure that. I'm going to click escape and I will get rid of that. We know that it's at 2. So how do we fix that? I will show you guys how to fix that. I'm going to go to my draw tab. I just have the cursor, no commands are selected. If I click on that line we made, there's grips right there. These little blue dots are called grips, and I can stretch that line up, down, what have you. If I stretch it like that and click it, you can see what happens. I'm going to hit undo. We don't want that. What I will do is I will click on it and it comes up, and if I click on one side of it, it lets me have the dynamic input box highlighted, which lets me reduce that to 1 instead of 2. And there we go. And I want to do the same down here on this one. And here's something that you can do. You can click on it, or you can make the crossing window. If you do the crossing window this way, it doesn't pick it up because it doesn't grab the whole item. If you cross right to left, it does pick it up because anything it touches, it picks up. So once again, click on the grip, either side, doesn't matter, and type in 1, enter, and escape. And now we have a problem though. Our problem is that our half of our model is separated from the other half. So I'm going to introduce you guys to the move command as well. And that would be under the modify tab. And this first button is the move tab. So if I click on the move tab, it asks us to select the objects. So I want everything here, and using the crossing window right to left, I'm going to click and hold and drag, and you can see it picked up everything. And I will confirm that selection by pushing enter. And now it asks me to specify the base point, or the point at which I want to move it from. I'm going to pick the end point of that radius line right there. And it says specify the point at which, the second point on where we want to move this to. I can move this to anywhere, but with my polar tracking on, I want to go over 90 degrees until I meet that endpoint and click yes, and click down, and now that resembles our shape. So you guys got a lot to review here. I know this is kind of a long tutorial, but that's the shape that we are after. I'll give you guys just a second to examine our pattern with correct dimensions we're working off of and our finished drawing to the right. So in review, we learned about the fillet command that you see here. We learned how to locate circles using our polar tracking, using the hover and polar tracking. We learned the move command that I showed you guys by making one of our lines too long on both sides, using the grip and using the dynamic input to shorten that line, and then the move command to reconnect the whole piece back into our main object that we drew, our main part here. So this could be a wrench, this could be a part for a tractor, this could be something that you need to hand off to a machinist in a shop to recreate a secure for a hydraulic unit on a tractor, like I mentioned, something like that. So our skills are progressing, and hopefully that this tutorial will help you complete our exercise you see here to the left.